There has been considerable provision of additional school spaces and other infrastructure needs by the National Education Trust, a government company under the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. It's the vehicle through which the ministry intends to secure a consistent and reliable source of funds to support capital programs in education, and the trust is empowered to receive endowments, bequests, borrow and lend, and participate in the bond market, while also engaging Jamaicans at home and in the diaspora in seeking funding to support the country's education system.
We have been for the last 7 years mainly focused on infrastructure, because that is really the most critical need in education right now. The expansion of schools and the construction of new schools, mainly to take schools off shift, because you know that is one of the research has found that is one of the things about our education system that creates disparity. Because whilst you have some students being able to get premium time in terms of the hours that the contact hours in school, there are others who get less time because they're on a shift.
Other areas being covered?
Things like laboratories for both science and technical vocational education is another big area. Provision of canteen facilities, upgrading, just general upgrading of classrooms, like putting in electrical fixtures, whiteboards, or now we have actually moved to smart boards.
NET is also actively involved in getting water harvesting facilities in 344 schools and alternate sources of energy to reduce the cost of electricity, pursuing presently solar projects in 30 schools. It is also seeking to provide infrastructure for wireless access. Partnerships are clearly required to secure funding for these projects, challenging though the exercise remains.
One of the big things that we started with is that we wanted to have a diaspora bond. That we realize is not something that NET alone can do, and it will take partnerships with other entities. So we're currently looking, for example, with the Economic Growth Council wants to do something in line with that, or through, I think it's a stock exchange that's looking at various mechanisms of modeling. So it's looking really outside of NET and NET alone, and looking to tap into other entities and financial organizations that may be able to come up with unique financial options to fund education.
With schools being built and with all else that has to be provided, you continue to wonder about the progress being made in the classroom. Literacy, numeracy, science, technology, engineering, and technical and vocational training, all weighing in on you, all placed on your blackboard, beg your pardon, smartboard. And all of this, naturally, is to be considered because infrastructure is framework provided to facilitate what we're aiming to achieve. You beam, broad grin even, because the National Literacy Program has exceeded its target, achieving 86.5% mastery to surpass the 85% target set. Dr. Andre Hill, man always assured about what has been applied, is not surprised.
It was not a surprise achievement. This is something that we strategically worked towards obtaining. And we were able to achieve this target through the implementation of the ministry's National Comprehensive Literacy Program, which is a program that focuses on literacy at the primary level. So there's a grades 1 to 3 focus, and we define that level as where children are engaged in learning to read and write. And there's a second component, literacy at 4 to 6, where children display the skills that they would have acquired over the seminal years of their educational or literacy development. Now, the ministry also engaged, in addition to producing a national comprehensive literacy program, a cadre of reading and literacy professionals. We had a national literacy coordinator who was engaged before I took office in 2011. In addition to her, there were select regional literacy coordinators who worked in the 6 regions across the island, and I happen to have been one of those original regional literacy coordinators. And we also had quite a number. I think up to one point we had over 65 literacy specialists who were assigned to select schools across the island. They were supervised by the regional literacy coordinators, and their particular role was to work with classroom teachers, to help classroom teachers to develop their competencies in reading, language arts, literacy, so that they could better address the needs, the deficiencies among some of their students.
Fine, but oh, how we fear math. So there has always been a frown over improving student mastery and utility of mathematics concepts. For a number of us, there is even a mental block. In attempting to clear all this, the National Comprehensive Numeracy Program has sought to create a framework that outlines clear principles, standards, and guidelines for the teaching and learning of mathematics in Jamaica. Just how do we get this done?
Between 2008 and 2010, we mainly focused on the teacher component of it. We placed a lot of emphasis on there at that point in time. I think in the 2012 iteration is where we began to focus a lot more on the cultural issues. And so between 2010 and 2012, the ministry would have published, well, just late 2012, the ministry would have developed between 2010 and 12 the National Comprehensive Numeracy Program. And that program had 6 elements to it. And one of them was putting math in everyday life. And there's another one, I think, math in family life. So in both of those things, we're feeding into this whole idea of helping to make the subject more relatable. And what we decided to do in 2012, right, was now to basically launch a campaign, really focus on changing the culture.
The progress made.
We have seen some growth. If we go back and look at where we are, if we take student achievement, and we look at where we were in 2009, when I think the first grade 4 national exam was sat, and we would have had about 30-something% of the children attaining mastery. We're up to just about 60%. So we've seen growth. The growth is not as steep at grade 6 with GSAT, and we've seen some significant gains, even though we had a good chunk of that eaten out last year. But still, the overall growth path at J-TEC is better. We're seeing more students sitting. We're seeing more students sitting in schools where they would have almost no students sitting. And we're seeing, even in those schools, increased pass rates.
All right, but some of us are still afraid.
Everybody can do it. You don't need to be the person who look a particular way or who you think is gifted or bright or exceptional. But all of us can do it, and all of us can succeed at it.
I love my maths, I love my maths, I love my maths. I love my maths, I love my maths. I love my maths, I love my maths, I love my maths. I love my maths. We want maths, we eat maths, we sleep maths, we wear maths. Maths is everything. Math counts. Maths is everything. Math counts.
That feels better. It's a confidence shared by Dr. Grace Mclean, Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, when she speaks to us about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM, as it is referred to at the ministry.
We have also embedded and is integrated STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics within the overall education system. And as it were, we are actually using STEM to rebrand TVET so it can be more attractive and effective.
TVET is ministry acronym for Technical Vocational Education and Training.
Over the last 5 years, we have introduced up to 13 technical and vocational subjects within the education system. We have all 167 high schools in Jamaica doing at least one technical and vocational area. We have spent upwards of $400 million in providing equipment and material for our schools, our high schools across Jamaica. We have written within the national standards curriculum that is being implemented now from primary through to secondary, technical and vocational education. And so from the grade 1 to 3 level, with the integrated model, our little pupils will be focusing on the orientation and induction aspect of TVET.
It's clear that we're getting ready for the global marketplace. When we return, modernization of the ministry and all that it entails.